Praise the Lord, everybody. I got a Bible study for y'all today, and I'm going to go ahead and continue from last week, which is the relentless pursuit of temptation, which was part 1. So this is part 2. I'm going to read from Exodus chapter 14, verse 10 through 12, and I'm going to read some scriptures from the Message version and some in the King James version. All scriptures from Exodus will be from the Message version. Verse 10. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up and saw them, Egyptians, coming at them. They were totally afraid. They cried out in terror to God. They told Moses, weren't the cemeteries large enough in Egypt so that you had to take us out here in the wilderness to die? What have you done to us, taking us out of Egypt? Back in Egypt, didn't we tell you this would happen? Didn't we tell you, leave us alone here in Egypt? We're better off as slaves in Egypt than as corpses in the wilderness. I'm going to title this Bible study, and it's in a question form. What will you do when your back is against the wall? It's a long one. And this is the part 2 of 2. So last time we learned that temptation relentlessly pursues us. I'm going to start this part with a question. When your back is against the wall, what will you do? You can A, cry out to God, B, murmur and complain about your situation, or C, just give up and head back to your bondage in Egypt. Israel was still new to God and just weren't fully ready to put their trust in God, though they did see the 10 plagues that God has released on Egypt. You've got to understand they were under pressure, and we all do crazy things under pressure. What did Israel do? They cried to God first, but that wasn't the end of what they did. They then turned and murmured against Moses and expressed desire to go back to Egypt. Notice how Egypt was mentioned 5 times in verse 11 through 12. It was clear that their hearts haven't exactly left Egypt. If you are like the Israelites with your back against the wall, you need a faith boost. I'm gonna read a couple Psalms. The first one is Psalm 27, in verse 1 through 3. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. So this is one of David's psalms, a song of trust. The Lord is my light. He is my salvation. He is the strength of my life. That's how David saw God. Whom shall I fear? If God is your light, salvation, and strength of your life, whom shall you fear? Though David's enemies sought to destroy him, David's faith, trust, and confidence was in the Lord. Psalm 34, verse 17 and 18. The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth and delivereth them out of all their troubles. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit, or, in other words, crushed in spirit. Another psalm of David's. In this psalm, David acknowledges that the Lord acknowledges the righteous. God hears the cries of the righteous. He will pull them through their situation. May not be exact deliverance at times, but he will pull them right on through. God is also near those who are hurting. When you are broken and hurting, that's where you can feel God mending you if you just let him take your hurt and mend you. Psalm 106. Verse 7 through 12. Our fathers understood not thy wonders in Egypt. They remembered not the multitude of thy mercies, but provoked him at the sea, even at the Red Sea. Nevertheless, he saved them for his name's sake, that he might take his mighty power to be known. Make his mighty power to be known. He rebuked the Red Sea also, and it was dried up. So he led them through the depths as through the wilderness. And he saved them from the hand of him that hated them, and redeemed them from the hand of the enemy. And the waters covered the enemies. There was not one of them left. Then believed they his words, they sang his praise. This psalm recounts the events in Exodus 14, as well as other experiences in the wilderness. But that specific passage referred to Exodus 14. In verse 7, it reveals that the Israelites provoked God at the Red Sea, they wanting to turn back to Egypt. Verse 8, however, shows God's goodness and long-suffering, as he will go ahead and lead them right on through anyway. Though we have lapses in faith and murmur and complain, God is still just to bring us through our situation. That's the goodness and long suffering of God at work. He's faithful when we're unfaithful. Let's go back to Exodus 14 and finish the story. I'm gonna read verse 13 and 14. Moses spoke to the people, "Don't be afraid, stand firm and watch God do his work of salvation for you today. Take a good look at the Egyptians today, for you're never going to see them again. God will fight the battle for you, and you keep your mouth shut." Whew. Moses steps up to take charge of the Israelites at the Red Sea. He gives 4 commands in this passage. 1, don't be afraid. 2, stand firm. 3, watch God do his work. And 4, keep your mouth shut and stop complaining. While Moses was barking his commands, he encouraged the children of Israel at the same time, telling them who God is and what he'll do. They will never see the Egyptians ever again. The Lord will fight for them. Exodus 14:15 through 18. God said to Moses, "Why cry out to me? Speak to the Israelites. Order them to get moving. Hold your staff high and stretch your hand out over the sea. Split the sea. The Israelites will walk through the sea on dry ground. Meanwhile, I'll make sure the Egyptians keep up their stubborn chase. I'll use Pharaoh and his entire army, his chariots and horsemen, to put my glory on display so that the Egyptians will realize that I am God." God speaks and instructs Moses. God gives the key to those who know and believe God. Who knows what Moses thought when he heard the instruction to stretch out his hand and staff out over the sea? Moses obeyed nonetheless. He had unconditional obedience. Exodus 15:21 through 21 and 22. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and God, with a terrific east wind all night long, made the sea go back. He made the sea dry ground. The sea waters split. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground with the waters a wall to the right and to the left. So at Moses' obedience, God began to work his awesome wonders. Obedience does wonders when you just unconditionally obey the commands of the Lord. Exodus 14:23 through 25. The Egyptians came after them in full pursuit, every horse and chariot and driver of Pharaoh racing into the middle of the sea. It was now the morning watch. God looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud on the Egyptian army and threw them into a panic. He clogged the wheels of their chariots. They were stuck in the mud. The Egyptians said, "Run from Israel! God is fighting on their side and against Egypt." Whew. So God just put the So God sure put the fear of God in the Egyptian army. The Egyptians finally saw who they were dealing with, and they experienced the terror of the Lord firsthand. Exodus 14:26 through 31, my last passage. But the Israelites walked right through the middle of the sea on dry ground. The waters forming a wall to the right and to the left. God delivered Israel that day from the oppression of the Egyptians. Then Israel looked at the Egyptian dead washed up on the shore of the sea and realized that the tremendous power that God brought against the Egyptians. The people were in reverent awe before God and trusted in God and his servant Moses. So God had Moses raise his hand over the sea again against the Egyptian army. The Red Sea collapsed and washed away Pharaoh's army. We need to raise our hand against our sins and temptation and watch God wash them away. What God washes under the blood stays under the blood. Conclusion. And when your temptation has your back against a wall, what will you do? Turn your eyes to God. Have faith and trust in God. Stand your ground against temptation. Unconditionally obey God. Raise your hand against temptation and sin and watch God wash it away under the blood. God bless y'all in Jesus' name.